Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, how can I improve my grip strength in the gym? Good question. All right, so there's a few ways you can do this. There's a lot of personal trainers and coaches out there that will recommend you use lifting chalk. I'm not a huge advocate of using chalk. I find it messy. I don't want to get it all over my clothes. I don't want to get it all over the equipment. So I don't use chalk. I don't recommend that anyone use chalk, but there are those people out there that like chalk. So you can use lifting chalk. Another option would be to use either lifting straps or the ones that we sell here at lifting grabbers. Okay. So, in my opinion, straps and grabbers are incredibly beneficial. Okay. Now, the reason why these are so beneficial is because when you're lifting weights in the gym, especially when you're lifting heavy weights in the gym, whether you're doing a seated row or a lat pull down or a barbell deadlift, you're putting a lot of strain on your forearm extensors and your forearm and flexors. And as I've talked about in the past, if you look at an anatomy chart, you would notice that between point A and point B down here, there's very little muscle. This is basically bones, tendons, ligaments. Okay. So the last thing you want to do is put additional strain on your bones, tendons, and ligaments. Okay. Not to mention your joints. So this is why I recommend people use lifting straps or lifting grabbers. Okay. What's going to happen is when you're using that, it'll take a lot of stress off those areas and keep it on the muscle where it needs to be. So how do you know if you should be using lifting straps or lifting grabbers? Well, if you're doing a seated row and all of a sudden you start to feel your forearm extensors going, it's a good sign it's time to use your grabbers or straps. Okay. Same thing with a deadlift, same thing with lat pull down. So what happens when I work with a lot of people for the first few weeks is they're lifting fairly lightweight, so they don't really notice the additional strain in their forearm extensors yet. But as they start to progress with their training and increase their weights in the gym, like, I'm really starting to feel my forearms now. I'm like, okay, that's not good. Okay. So in order for us to keep the tension on the muscles and not the tendons, not the ligaments, not the joints, we want to ensure that we're using something that's going to help stabilize your grip. And that's where straps and grabbers come into play. Okay. Um, Another thing too is if you're not using straps and you're not using grabbers and you're still like, well, no, I want to strengthen my grip in the gym. My question to you is why do you want to strengthen your grip? For what reason? I mean, are you a rock climber? Like, I mean, I can understand why rock climbers might need to have a strong grip, but if you're not out there climbing rocks and mountains, why do you need to strengthen your grip? So I've always found that to be a little ridiculous when people say, "Well, I want to have a strong grip." Now, if you do want to have a strong grip, they do sell those clamps. You can buy them on Amazon, grip clamps that'll help you strengthen your forearm extensors. You see when I'm squeezing like that, I am getting a little bit more of a contraction, and that will obviously help strengthen that area. But again, my question to you is, why are you so worried about your grip strength? Lastly, you have to make sure when you are lifting in the gym that you take as much pressure off areas like your forearm extensors and your forearm flexors because you don't want other problems to arise down the road. Problems such as tendonitis, arthritis, bursitis. All these issues can arise from you putting unnecessary strain on these areas. So, if you want to improve your grip strength in the gym, my recommendation is rather than focus on improving your grip strength, focus on what will take pressure off your forearm flexors and your forearm extensors. And in that case, it's a case of lifting straps or what we sell, the training grabbers, which I prefer the training grabbers myself, only because I find with lifting straps, you have to wrap the strap around the bar, around the dumbbell, around the cable. And I don't want to do all that. I'm all about maximizing my time efficiency in the gym. So I want to use the grabbers, click and go. That's it. Okay. So I don't use chalk. I don't use straps. I use lifting grabbers, but one of those three options should work well for you. All right. Okay. Next question. Nick, is muscle soreness a sign of a good workout? No. No. Put it this way. Someone who's brand new to the gym, they're going to be very sore after their first workout. Even if it's a very light workout, they're going to be sore. Okay. Because they're taking their muscles into planes and ranges of motion with resistance that they have never done before. So they are going to be sore. Now, someone who's a avid lifter who's been lifting for years, they're not going to be as sore. For me, for example, when I do my leg workouts, my legs are always sore after leg workout, especially not the day after, but the day after that. So if I train legs on a Sunday, they're actually going to be more sore on a Tuesday due to DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. It takes about 48 hours to kick in. So they're always going to be a little bit sore, but they're not to the point where I can't walk, I can't sit. Now, if I take a prolonged period of time off from the gym, like I did when I had my hernia surgery, I didn't train for 30 days. So that's 4 weeks, that's four missed leg workouts. My legs were very sore after my first leg workout, like incredibly sore because my legs had become so accustomed to training them on a weekly basis. And now I take that away for just a month. They're very sore. So I didn't get a better workout coming back into the gym after 4 weeks off. It's just my muscles weren't used to those planes and ranges of motion after taking a month off from training legs. Okay. So more soreness does not equate to a better workout. Just like more sweat does not equate to more fat loss. All right. So there's a lot of these misconceptions out there that you have to be sore, lift until you start like want to pass out or you feel nauseous and, no pain, no gain. It's all bullshit. Listen, you shouldn't be in pain when you're training. Okay. I mean, there's good pain and there's bad pain. Okay. But if you're feeling the bad pain, no. So if you wake up the next day and your lower back is sore to the point where you can't really move, you can't bend over, that's not good. You did something wrong in the gym. Okay. So a little bit of soreness is okay. But as you continue along with your training, you're going to notice that you become less and less sore. And that's why a lot of people like myself or other people who have been training for years train 6 days a week in the gym. And so, of course, they're sore, but they're not nearly as sore as someone who's a brand new beginner. But the soreness is manageable. It's not to the point like, oh, I can't move. Like yesterday, I did my back. I can feel my back if I do a row right now. I can feel it. But if I'm doing a demonstration for a group class or in a one-on-one, I can feel my lats because I worked back yesterday. Okay. But if you ask me 2 days from now, how's your back feeling? It'll feel fine. Okay. It feels fine now. It's a little sore, but not to the point where I can't move. And that soreness, that's a good thing. But you shouldn't dictate how good the workout was by how sore you are. Because if that's the case, you really risk injuring yourself. So just remember that. How sore you are does not equate to a better workout. Your results will tell you if you're having good workouts. All right. Okay. Nick, how can I avoid common gym injuries? You want to make sure that you warm up properly. And when I say warm up properly, I don't mean get on the foam roller and play around on a roller for 20 minutes. I don't mean walk on a treadmill for 30 minutes. I mean focus on dynamic movements, dynamic stretches, pre-workout and intra-workout. So you're constantly moving, you're constantly releasing synovial fluid through the body. If I start off my chest routine with an incline barbell bench press, my first working set is 45 pounds per side. I don't just put 45 pounds in cold turkey and go for it though. I'll do a quick warm up with the bar. The reason I'm doing that warm up with the bar is just to make sure that everything feels okay. How are my shoulders feeling? How are my pecs feeling? Is anything feeling tight? Because if something is feeling tight, my body will tell me, and I'd rather my body tell me while I'm doing a 40-pound bar versus adding an additional 90 pounds on top of that. And I do that with every single person I work with. That's my form of warming up. And then we start to pyramid the weights up with each ascending set. Okay. So I don't warm people up on treadmills. I don't warm people up on foam rollers, any of that nonsense. You can warm up properly by just getting your body to move and starting with light weight and increasing the weight on each ascending set. Okay. In my opinion, that's the best way to warm up. It's the most efficient way to warm up. So you're not wasting all this time on these foam rollers or on the treadmill. You're warming up with the weights. You're good to go. Most people find after with me, 5, 10 minutes, they're fully warmed up. It's usually about 5 minutes, and everyone's good to go. So that's how I recommend warming up. Start to pyramid your weights. Always start off with a weight on every exercise you do. If you're doing 15 reps, choose a weight that you could easily do 25 reps with. That's my recommendation. I truly believe that because even if you're on your fifth exercise of the workout, I would still pick a weight that you're like, if you're like, I could probably do 10 more reps after hitting 15, but you're not going to. Okay. Because if you pick a weight on your first set of a first exercise, or even your third exercise, and it's a weight that you can barely get 6 to 8 reps, you're going to risk injury. Absolutely. So if you want to last in this game, I talk about this all the time. One of the reasons I feel that I've been able to last so long and remain injury free is because I warm up properly. Okay. And I don't use treadmills and I don't use foam rollers. Like I said, I just focus on using the weights, taking my body through the movements that they're going to be doing during each exercise, training smart and listening to my body. All right. Nick, how many calories should I eat a day if I want to lose weight? Uh, okay, so you're someone who obviously does not watch the Q&As. I do not count calories. Never have, never will. I work with people who lift weights. So someone who comes to me that doesn't lift weights and wants to lose weight, I'm probably not the coach for them because my whole goal working with clients is to help them build muscle, lose fat, transform their physique, and improve their overall health and well-being. Okay. That's my goal. So if someone's just coming to me and saying, well, I don't want to put on any muscle, I just want to lose fat. I'm like, well, I'm not the trainer for you because I only know how to help people lose fat if they're building and maintaining muscle. And how I do that is by implementing a strategy that uses a combination of complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, and lean proteins. Calorie counting to me is completely irrelevant if the goal is to build and sustain muscle mass while losing stubborn body fat. Again, if you just want to lose weight for the sake of losing weight, by all means, start counting your calories. You're going to want to go into a caloric deficit. How much? Well, that will depend on your activity level. That will depend on how much weight you have to lose. That will also depend on your genetics. But I'm not the person to answer that question because, again, I don't work with people who just count calories. So a lot of times I'll get new clients and they'll say, hey, can you give me a rough estimate of how many calories I'm consuming? I'm like, nope, no idea. I'm not even going to sit down and figure it out. You can. I can tell you how much carbs you're having. I can tell how much fats you're having. I can tell how much protein you're having, but I'm not taking a calculator and counting your calories because they're irrelevant to me. Okay. And I've never counted calories. So to answer that question, it's not a one size fits all answer. So you can't say, well, you weigh 180 pounds, so you should have 1,800 calories a day and blah, blah. That's all nonsense. That's generic bullshit again. All right. Now, if you're 180 pounds and you're having 1,800 calories a day and you're doing an hour of cardio a day and you're moving around, yeah, you're going to lose weight because you're most likely going to be in a caloric deficit based on that body weight. But you're not going to put on any muscle. You're just going to be skinny. So to me, skinny doesn't look good and it's not healthy. Okay, a lot of people think that skinny is healthier than fat. No, there's a lot of people who are skinny, but they're not healthy. Okay, so you have to remember body fat percentage in general is just based on the amount of muscle mass you have or you don't have. So if you're someone who's very skinny, aesthetically, you look skinny, but you don't train enough weights, there's a good chance that your body fat percentage is actually going to be quite high because you don't have much muscle mass either. Okay, so that's all body fat percentage is based on. I think a lot of people think just because someone has a big belly that they have a high body fat percentage. True, but they might not have much of a higher body fat percentage than the person that's skinny that doesn't do any weights. Okay, so you get what I'm saying? So, in my opinion, the best way if your goal is to lose fat, not weight, because weight can mean anything. What does weight mean? Are you going to lose fat, muscle, water, all three? No, you want to lose just fat. So if the goal is to lose fat, you need to make sure that your macronutrients are in check. In order to make sure that your macronutrients are in check, you have to make sure that your micronutrients are in check. So the quality of the food you're consuming is on point. Okay. Because that's going to allow you to lift heavier in the gym. That's going to allow you to sleep better at night. That's going to allow you to recover better. And so you can get back to your workouts the next day and so on. Okay. So nutrition is key. You have to make sure that your diet's dialed in. And that all comes down to making sure that your macronutrients are in check along with your micronutrients, not calories. All right. Okay. Nick, do fats make you fat? I've had this question before, and the answer is no. Okay. Now I can see where you're coming from though, because when I first started designing my own nutritional plans, I came from that old school 90s mindset that fats were bad. And fats will make you fat. And it took me a long time to learn that fats actually help you lose weight. Okay. Now I know that might seem like a little bit out there, especially if you're someone who does look up information on nutritional labels and say, well, hey, look, fat has 9 calories per gram, whereas protein and carbs are much less. So again, we're not counting calories here. Okay. We're looking at the micronutrients of the macronutrients that you're consuming. So for example, if I have a tablespoon of peanut butter, a tablespoon of peanut butter is about 100 calories. Okay. That's a lot of calories for just one tablespoon. But that one tablespoon, once consumed, will allow you to feel fuller for a longer period of time. That 1 tablespoon of peanut butter is going to help regulate your blood sugar and insulin levels so that you're not feeling ravenous and you're not hungry within half an hour. Whereas if you're having a diet that's very high in carbohydrates, whether they're complex or simple, and very low in fats, you're going to constantly be hungry. All right. So usually when I'm trying to get someone to gain weight, I actually take down their fats. Whereas if I'm trying to help someone lose weight, I actually increase their fats and decrease their carbohydrates. Okay, usually not for everyone. Of course, everyone is different, right? Sometimes I work with people who are somewhat of a genetic freak when it comes to their metabolism, and they can eat quite a bit of carbs and still lose weight. Okay, but most people, you have to really watch the carbohydrate intake, but you have to make sure that you're not affecting their blood sugar levels or their insulin levels, and they're feeling low energy, low libido. They can't sleep properly because they're constantly hungry. So you have to make sure that you're increasing their fats. Also, fats are very important. Healthy fats, I should say, are very important for hormonal health, okay, for both men and women, especially for women. So it's a mistake to take out fats or neglect fats in your diet. You just want to make sure that the fats you are consuming are healthy fats. So, like omega-3 eggs, avocado, extra virgin olive oil, peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter. So, you really want to make sure that you're loading up on the healthy fats, not the bad fats. Okay. So, you want to stay away from the trans fats. Saturated fats are okay in moderation, but you don't want to consume too much of them. All right. So that's why you got to watch things like ribeye steak, for example. I'd much rather someone have a flank steak than a ribeye steak. Okay. So you really want to again make sure that you are consuming enough fats and not paying attention necessarily to the calories of the fats. Because I promise you, if you're eating the right amount of fats for your goal, you're going to feel fuller for a longer period of time. You're going to have lots of energy both inside the gym and outside the gym, which is going to allow you to burn more calories if you're counting calories throughout the day, which will equate to more fat loss. Okay. But you want to make sure that you're not starving, because if you are starving and your energy levels are low and you're not recovering properly, well, it's going to take you longer to get from point A to point B. It's going to take you longer to lose that fat. So why diet in a mode where you're constantly suffering when you don't have to suffer? Every diet I've ever done for myself for any show, I never suffered. I always felt fine. Okay. And as I got closer to the show, I started to decrease my carbs, increase my fats. My conditioning was usually on point. Okay. Very, very rarely did I lack the conditioning when I got on stage. I think there's one or two shows where I feel I didn't look the best. Okay. But for the most part, that's what I use for myself. And that's what I use for clients, regardless if they're trying to compete on bodybuilding or fitness, bikini, whatever it is. They just want to lose fat. That's what I do. I start to decrease carbs, increase fats, rotate protein, and the fat comes off, the muscle comes on, the physique transforms. All right. Nick, should I track my food intake if I'm trying to lose weight? So, yeah, I think most people should follow a nutritional plan that is not only consistent, but also offers portion control, which means that you are measuring out the foods that you're having, you are weighing out the foods that you're consuming. So you're weighing out your proteins, you're measuring out your carbohydrates. And I know that might seem a little OCD to a lot of people. However, if you truly do want to lose weight and you're kind of just doing it by intuitive eating, rarely does that work. Right? It might work for a few people and it might work short term for a lot of people, but long term, it doesn't work. So I always like to have a blueprint to follow and one that is consistent and one that I can look back at. So it's like looking back over my data and say, okay, well, this week you didn't lose weight and this is what we did with the plan. Okay. You didn't cheat on the plan. You were still getting all your gym sessions in. So it looks like we're going to have to do this, whatever it might be. Maybe I have to decrease your carbs, increase your fats, rotate your protein. Or maybe I have to decrease your fats, decrease your carbs, increase your protein. Whatever it may be, I can look back at that data and say, okay, this is what we need to do because this is what we did on week number 2. And you haven't lost weight this week. Okay. So if someone's coming to me and saying, well, I don't know why I didn't lose weight this week. And I'm like, what did you eat? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much what I had yesterday. Maybe I had 3 meals yesterday. The day before that, maybe I had 5 meals. The day before that, maybe I didn't have any meals. I had 1 meal. Then I binge drank. So you always want to have somewhat of a paper trail so you can look back and say, okay, this is where we went wrong. And it's the same thing I tell my clients who they send me biweekly check-ins. If someone has a cheat meal on a Thursday night and they send me their check-in on a Friday morning, that cheat meal is going to impact the number on the scale. 100% it will. It always does. And that's why I tell clients, I don't care. If you want to have your cheat meal on a Thursday night for a Friday morning weigh-in, do it. But just be aware that your weight's going to go up by 2, 3 pounds easily because you're going to be holding additional water from the cheat meal. Okay. That's very common. So most people that work with me online, they will save their cheat meal for, let's say, a Friday night for a Friday morning weigh-in so that they're on the diet plan perfectly. They don't have additional sodium in their diet. So the weigh-in that they give me is a true weigh-in. Okay. There's no variables there that I have to go, what did you do this day? What did you do that day? Okay. Or what did you eat yesterday? So I know what they ate. So I don't do the intuitive eating approach. I think that once you get down to your goal, you can do the intuitive eating approach. That's fine. I'm still kind of a stickler for my routine. I still, to this day, I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm not trying to gain muscle. I'm just trying to maintain my physique now at this point. And I found a formula that works, so I stick with it. And I do weigh out my protein, and I do measure out my carbohydrates and my fats. And it doesn't take any additional time. Okay. Right now, as I'm doing this Q&A, I've got two big baking trays of chicken breasts in the oven. I've got a rice cooker, two rice cookers on right now because I usually cook a lot of rice. So I got two rice cookers on right now. I'm sitting here doing a Q&A. Okay. It's going to take me less than 15 minutes to chop that all up, weigh it out, portion it out, done. And that'll give me easily about 16 meals. Okay. So it doesn't take any time. So it's just being more aware of what you're consuming. And the only way to truly tell, in my opinion, if you're going in the right direction is if you're keeping track of what you're doing. And having that data is crucial. So whether you're working with a coach or you're doing it on your own, if you're truly focused on getting down to whatever weight you want to get down or losing like 3 or 4 sizes, dress sizes or pant sizes, whatever it may be, you got to keep the data. You have to, because if you don't, once you hit a plateau, you're not going to know what to change. All right. Okay. Okay, Nick, what are some common signs of undereating? I don't think I've ever had that question. That's actually a really good question. Okay, so there's a lot of people that I've worked with over the years, especially competitors, that tend to think when it comes to diet, less is best. So that, well, if I'm going to get down 2 pounds, if I drop my carbs down, let's say, for example, to 90 grams per day, man, if I drop my carbs down to 50 grams per day, I might get down 4 pounds this week. So I have a lot of people who think like that. And it's very common for competitors to think like that. I've even thought like that over the years. But I promise you that doesn't work. Okay. It might work short term, but long term, it doesn't work. And what happens when you tend to undereat is you tend to lose a lot of muscle mass. When you lose muscle mass, you notice it right away in the gym. Your strength starts to go down. Your energy levels start to plummet. Your libido, non-existent. And as far as sleep is concerned, well, that's greatly impacted because your cortisol levels are going to be high. Your body's hungry. It needs nutrients. So it's a mistake to starve yourself. It's a mistake to undereat. And all those things I just listed are common symptoms and signs that you are undereating. So if you do notice that you have constantly low energy levels throughout the day and you're relying on stimulants such as caffeine to get you through the day, you could be undereating. If you're not sleeping properly at night, you're constantly waking up, you just feel you don't feel well rested when you do wake up in the morning, that could be another sign of undereating. If you notice that your strength in the gym is starting to go down on a weekly basis, that's a very good sign that you're undereating. Okay. So I've always told people, you want to make sure that you are paying attention to these signs. Your body, and I know I say this a lot, but your body will tell you what to do if you listen to it. Okay. Your body will tell you, Nick, or whoever, I'm hungry, feed me. I need more food. Okay. So I've always listened to my body. And I always really try to pay attention to say, okay, are you truly hungry? Or are you just bored? And this is why, again, I do recommend people portion out their meals because if you portion out your meals accordingly, and this works for every single person I work with, once the meal is over, it's done. There's no snacking, there's no going for seconds, there's no going for thirds. That's it. Your meal's done. So if I say, okay, I want you having 8 ounces of chicken, 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, 1 cup of white rice, and I want you to have as much greens as you want, but throw it into one meal, that's it. Once that meal is done, you're not eating again for another 2, 3 hours. Okay. And that works for a lot of people because once that meal is finished, what are you going to do? You don't have another meal ready to go because you're eating in a structured manner. So it's not like you're going for snacks and you're just doing mindless eating because mindless eating equates to weight gain. Okay. And that's why I don't recommend people snack because I always said there's two things that cause weight gain. Okay, well, actually, three things. One's living a sedentary lifestyle. That will cause weight gain. Okay. A second, though, is not practicing proper portion control. Okay. And the third is snacking. So those three things, in my experience, is what leads to weight gain. And so if you can manage those three things and you can live an active lifestyle where you are moving, you don't have to be in the gym every day, but you are moving. You're walking, maybe you're running, you're just moving, you're standing, you're not constantly sitting. That's going to help. Okay, because you are going to burn more energy, you're going to burn more calories, and you are going to be able to at least manage your weight. Okay. And if you are practicing proper portion control, you're not going to overeat. And if you're avoiding snacking, again, you're not going to overeat. Okay. So it's a combination of overeating and living that sedentary lifestyle that leads to weight gain. Nothing to do with age. I promise you that. Okay. Because I get a lot of people that say, well, I'm getting older now, so my metabolism's slowing down. I'm like, says who? Can you show me any scientific data that's showing you this, that's telling me that your weight should slow down with age? I have not seen one single piece of evidence that suggests that. What happens though is people become more comfortable, okay, and they become a little bit more, or I should say a little bit less active throughout their years. Okay, people get a little bit more tired. Okay, so that's why I tell people when you're lifting weights, when you're exercising, you should be doing this for life. It should be a lifetime goal. It should not be just a short-term goal. And I've talked about how I have clients in their 60s and 70s who are out training people in their 20s because they're doing it daily. They're living a consistent lifestyle of this. Okay. So it's not just let's go to the gym for an hour and then see you later. No, it's like now let's go to the gym for an hour and make sure our diet's in check for the remaining 23 hours a day. And that helps. Okay. So in my opinion, that's how you're going to do it. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to put on weight. All right. Okay. Nick, how important is nutrient timing? I've touched on this before. It's irrelevant. Honestly, it's irrelevant. I mentioned last week about post-workout, the anabolic window. As long as you get a meal in within the 2, 3 hours, in my opinion, your body's not going to go into a catabolic state. I feel that most people respond really well to eating every 2 or 3 hours. I know it's not practical for everyone. So there are people I work with where I put them on nutritional plans where they're doing 3 to 4 meals a day. That's okay too. I don't mind that. I always tell people structure your meal plans around your day. So if you have, let's say, for example, you're up at 6 in the morning, but you're not hungry until 9 a.m., it's fine. You don't have to eat at 6 in the morning. You can eat at 9 a.m., but just make sure that you're getting at least, if it's 4 or 5 meals in your day, just make sure you're consuming all four of those 5 meals within a 24-hour window. And I find that works really well for pretty much everyone I work with online because it gives them a little bit more flexibility with their diet. Like, okay, I don't have to eat every 3 hours. Nick says, as long as I get my 4 or 5 meals in a 24-hour span, I'm good. So that means if you do want to get 2 meals in 3 hours, do it. I've done that before. That's fine. And if you're eating healthy food, it shouldn't have any impact whatsoever on your blood sugar levels or insulin levels if you are consuming 2, maybe 3 meals in a 4 or 5 hour window. Okay. And or maybe not consuming food for 5, 6 hours. Okay. Because there's times that I do that and I'm fine. But I do make sure that I'm getting all my meals. In my case, it's 6 meals a day. I get all 6 meals in within a 24-hour span. Where I put those meals in, that depends on my day. My day changes on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So I'm constantly switching up the order of my meals, the sequence of my meals. I'm switching up the timing of my meals, and I've never noticed it had a negative impact on my workouts or my physique. So I implement that strategy of everyone, and it just keeps things simple and allows people to live their lives without having to look at their watch every like 2 or 3 hours. Oh, I got to eat. Oh my God, I'm stressed out about it. Okay. Keep it simple. You'll still get results. All right. Okay. I think we have one more question. Okay. Nick, how do I stop binge eating while dieting? So people who binge eat while they're dieting, I can tell you right now, they're not following the proper diet for themselves. Okay. They're following either a cookie cutter plan, a generic plan they found online that's not allowing them to get the nutrients that they need. All right. So what happens when you're following a cookie cutter plan that's designed for the masses? It's just that it's designed for the masses. So if you're someone who has a fairly active job, let's say you're a personal trainer, okay, and you're on your feet. I'm on my feet for God, at least 7 or 8 hours a day. Okay. The only time I sit down is to do some online work, do the Q&A. That's about it. So I'm on my feet a lot. So why would I follow the same diet plan as someone who's sitting at a desk for 7 to 8 hours a day? I'm exerting way more energy than that person. So I'm going to need more food, okay, to get me through my day. So this is why it's important that when you're working with a coach or a trainer, dietitian, nutritionist, that they design a plan that is designed specifically for you, customized for your goals, your lifestyle, potential allergies that you might have, potential health issues that you might have. Maybe you have an inactive thyroid. Okay. So it's very important that the person you're working with can structure a plan that works well for you, that is sustainable, and that will allow you to lose body fat while feeling good throughout the day. You don't feel like you're being deprived. So whenever I hear of people binge eating, I say, okay, you're following the wrong diet. It's quite simple. And I don't know what your diet looks like. You could be lacking fats. Maybe you're not getting enough carbs. Maybe you're not getting enough protein. Okay. Maybe you're having too much carbs and not enough fats. Okay. So there's all these variables that could be happening, but because I don't work with you, I don't know what your diet looks like. But I can promise you that when I work with someone, I always tell them for the first 2 or 3 weeks, there's going to be some trial and error here. I have to figure out your body. I have to figure out what works with your body. Are you someone that responds really well to a low carb, high fat diet? Are you someone that responds really well to a moderate carb, lower fat diet? Okay. Protein, I keep pretty consistent for most people. Obviously, for people who are in the gym 5, 6 days a week, I give them more protein versus someone who's in the gym maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Okay. So following a plan that you find online or the plan that your friend is following, that to me is a mistake because you are an individual. So if you're not customizing the program specifically for you, you're most likely not going to get the results that you're expecting to achieve. Or you might get the results that you're expecting to achieve, but you're going to do it while you're suffering. You're going to feel like crap. Okay, I've seen that before too. I've seen tons of people who go on these crazy diets and they're constantly drinking coffee throughout the day to help suppress their appetites. And the only time I tell people to do things like that is if they're getting closer to a contest and we're a little behind schedule. So I have someone who's like maybe 2 weeks out from a show. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? We're a little behind. You're going to have to suffer for a few days. But I don't want you suffering for a few months or a few weeks. I might need you to suffer for 2 or 3 days. Then I'm going to give you a refeed meal. Okay. But that's again for people who are trying to get their body fat levels very low. Okay, for guys, we're talking 2 or 3%. For women, we're talking 10 to 12%. So for the average person, no, we don't need to be walking around at 3% body fat or 10% body fat. So you don't need to suffer. Okay, you just need to implement the strategy that makes sense. And the best way to do that is to work with someone who is knowledgeable when it comes to dietary nutrition and can help you troubleshoot based on your lifestyle, your job. Okay, that's very important. Every single person I work with, I'm like, what do you do for work? And like, why does that matter? I'm like, well, it matters because do you have a job where you're sitting all day? Or are you moving a lot? I've got two guys that work in construction. They're moving all the time. So I need to feed them. And they're still losing weight. They're both losing body fat. They came to work with me this year because they want to lose body fat. Both of them starting off over 250 pounds, but I'm giving them lots of food still because they need it. And they're now down just under 200 pounds, both of them. So it goes to show you that you don't have to just start eliminating a whole bunch of food and starving yourself to lose weight. You just have to implement a strategy that makes sense. Okay. And in order to do that, you have to have a good understanding of dietary nutrition. And if you don't, then it's in your best interest to work with a reputable and knowledgeable coach that can help you get from point A to point B without all the bullshit and without having to starve or without having to feel low energy levels and rely on stimulants. Because you do all that, and then of course you're going to resent dieting. That's why I don't like to use the word diet. I prefer to use the word nutritional plan and put together a program that is sustainable for life, not just one that you can get in shape in 12 weeks and okay, see you later, put the weight all back on again, and we'll do it again next year. Because that to me is not an effective strategy to follow. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, September the 22nd. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly do appreciate all the support and feedback that I receive from each and every single one of you. Thank you all again, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.